Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us for this month's town hall. As many of you know, we believe in co-governance, so I always like to invite my colleagues at local and state level to join us at our town halls. Tonight we are happy to welcome State Senator Mary Kunesh, State Representative Aaron Cagle, Spring Lake Park City Council member April Moran. And then we also have in the audience Spring Lake Park City Administrator Daniel Butch-Hall. Before I dive into my updates on what's happening in Washington, D.C. and in the district, I would like to invite these leaders to share a bit about the work that they are doing on behalf of our constituents. I will like to start off by welcoming State Senator Mary Kunesh.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here on this beautiful, beautiful night. I mean, we could all be out for a walk, but it's also really good to get together with all of you. And I also want to welcome the Mayor of Hilltop and then our community leader, Natividad, two leaders in our community that are doing really incredible things in very unique communities, our manufactured home communities. I'm your state senator. I have been your state senator for the past 6 years and would like to continue for 4 years. And prior to that, I was a state representative. I represented the B side of the district. Currently, I am an assistant majority leader in the Senate and also the chair of Education Finance, which is really the world that I work in. I was a teacher for 25 years, library media specialist for 20 of those years. So right now my focus is on how we can best serve our students and our teachers and do the very best with our taxpayers' money to get those dollars into the classroom and into the resources. This is not a budget year, so the focus is on policy, and Senator Swedzinski is our policy chair. But that doesn't mean that we might have a little bit of something to put towards education. And I'm looking very much towards working on compensatory aid. Those are all the little additional funds that we appropriate to schools for kids with disabilities and special needs. And it's not an easy thing because the cost of educating our kids, like everything else in this world, is going up and up and up. But I can promise you that I am going to continue to work very hard to ensure that we are using your taxpayer dollars in the very best way to educate our kids. Since the surge, the ICE surge, we saw attendance drop dramatically, with the number of students either being threatened or their families being threatened, or many of our students actually afraid of going to school, even if they did not have, if they were natural born immigrants or Americans or members of our community. That is slowly coming back, and I was really proud to have alerted the governor about the 15-day drop. If a student misses 15 consecutive days of unexcused absences, they're automatically dropped from the schools and would have to re-enroll and go through that whole process again. The governor overnight very nimbly gave the schools the flexibility to flip to online learning, which kept those kids engaged, kept those families engaged, and the teachers were able to continue those lessons. That attendance issue is something that we have been working on very hard since COVID, and we had been seeing some really great progress in that area. Unfortunately, I feel like we are almost back to post-COVID times, but that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to reach out to those students. We are also looking and doing legislation around gun control, especially public safety when it comes to schools. We are working hard at getting resources to those that experience serious economic downfalls because of the ICE surge, especially around paying their rent and mortgage, and of course the threat of the real threat of the funds that have been withdrawn from education and healthcare that are going to just decimate Minnesotans across the state. It's not just in our community or our near community, it's the entire state. So these are some of the things that we are working very, very hard on. I just want to do one more shout out about something really important that's going to be, hopefully, knock on wood, on your ballot in the fall. It's a constitutional amendment that would allow us to increase the payout to our students from the school trust fund. I don't know, how many of you know what the school trust fund is? Yeah, nobody does. This is a fund that was created when we became a state, and we were tasked to use allocated land allotments to generate funding for education. A lot of it came from up north in the mining area and the timber area since the start of our country. And at this point, we're only generating $74 a kid, which didn't seem right to me. So we created a task force that looked at how we are investing those dollars and how we could possibly draw some more out of that. And the task force came up with a really, really good plan. And our Board of Investments is vested in this new change. And so there'll be more information. We have to pass it off the floor yet. But I would encourage you all to go home tonight and Google Minnesota School Trust Fund. Educate yourself around that, educate others around that, and then hopefully look for that on the ballot and mark a yes for that. So thank you all for being here this evening on this lovely night. Hope to see you around the community.
Thank you, Senator Kunish. It's always incredible to be with you. Senator Kunish and I started as state reps together, and so it's always fun to be here. So did I with Representative Erin Cagle, and we would like to invite her to give some quick updates on what's happening in the House.
Thank you. So this year I got moved from transportation over to commerce. So I'm the co-chair of the Commerce Committee this year. And we've been doing a lot of good work when it comes to things like protecting Minnesota consumers against fraud. And so one of the first things we are hoping to get passed off the floor is a ban on crypto kiosks. Crypto kiosks, 98% of them are used in fraud. There was a AG's report from Iowa, and they had tracked that 98% of the transactions, over 98, at those kiosks were tied to scams. And so here in Minnesota, we're not going to let that happen. And so we are going to outlaw those crypto kiosks. My legislative assistant, Alex, who's sitting right there, did a lot of work on that bill, so I really appreciate him. We're also working hard on making sure to hold insurance companies accountable, health insurance companies. Right now, it feels like they keep wanting to cut services and have the government pay for more. And so my question to them is, what do you do here? And that is really kind of the big question, right? And so, I don't see them adding value to Minnesota right now. And so I have been encouraging everybody that we need to start really talking about single-payer healthcare as an option, as a real option. Because we are seeing right now that our hospitals can't handle it. We can't handle the cost of healthcare anymore. Premiums are going up and up, and we're not getting anything for them. And so we need to dismantle this system that is just meant to kind of shove money to, Lake Minnetonka yachts, and really have it work for the people. And that's something that we're also looking into when it comes to just daily shopping items. Surveillance pricing is something that we've really been tackling and trying to figure out how we demand change there. Because what's happening is they're using your personal private data on anything that, if you download a free game on your app, it's not free. They're selling your data. Anytime you go to a website, anytime you go into a store, they can, track where you are and what you need. If you have a MacBook, you get charged more for airplane tickets than if you have a PC. And so they're really they're taking all of this information and aggregating it and then setting prices to your pain point. Not necessarily what the market is driving the price at, but at what you can afford and what you will pay. And they're doing the same thing with wages as well. And so we really need to make sure that we have not only transparency on the government side, because we know there's people who, the trust in government is eroding. And so we really need to build transparency into our government so that you all can see exactly where every single taxpayer dollar is going. And then at the same time, we also need to hold these corporations that are getting these huge government contracts accountable at the same pace and make sure that they are sharing the transparency as well so that we know exactly where every single taxpayer dollar is going. And so those are the kind of main things that I've been working on through my work the past decade. We are seeing some of that transparency start up in transportation now. There's going to be a dashboard where you can go and see where all the projects are. And I'm happy to say that a lot of them are going to be here in this district. And so University Avenue in Central are going to be getting rebuilt. And then the F line is going to be also coming up on Central, crossing over 53rd and then going up to University, terminating at the transit station. And so those are just some of the few things that, we've been working on for a while. And this is my last session in the legislature, in the House. So after 10 years, I've decided to take a step back. And, I have a 7-year-old that's in this school district and over at Woodcrest. And so I'm really sad to be leaving the legislature, honestly, because I feel like this is one of the few jobs that I've actually been good at. And I really get a ton of energy from you all. And it's just been such a great honor to represent you guys and get to know some of you and get emails from a lot of you, and sometimes not nice emails, but those come with the territory too. So but I just really want to appreciate all of your guys' support over the past 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Cagle, for your years of dedicated service to the people of Minnesota, your leadership and commitment to our communities that have made a lasting difference. It's been an honor to serve and partner with you on behalf of our constituents, and I am deeply grateful for the care and compassion you have brought to public service. Your work has strengthened families, supported working people, and helped build a more equitable Minnesota. In your recognition of service and the legacy you leave behind, I am proud to present you with the congressional record honoring your contribution to the state. Now, I would like you to come up and read what we submitted to the congressional record that is going to live in the Library of Congress for your daughter and your great-great-great-grandchildren to read someday. Wow. Okay,
Now
here
I
you
have
go.
to publicly read?
Yes, you do now.
Oh, no. Miss
Well, let's show them first.
Okay.
What it looks like.
Miss Omar, Speaker, I rise today to recognize State Representative Erin Cagle, who will retire from the state legislature at the end of her term. Rep. Cagle was born in Duluth, Minnesota in 1982, grew up in Maple Grove, and attended Osseo High School. She graduated from the University of Minnesota Duluth with a Bachelor's of Applied Science and a minor in Political Science. Years later, she continued her education, earning her master's in Advocacy and Political Leadership. Her educational background, along with her commitment to serving her community, primed her for a career in public service. In 2016, Erin was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives to represent District 39A, which now encompasses the cities of Fridley, Columbia Heights, Hilltop, and Spring Lake Park. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to work with Representative Cagle during my time serving in the Minnesota legislature, and I learned quickly how thoughtful, dedicated, and strategic she was when it comes to positively impacting her constituents' lives. She has served in multiple leadership roles throughout her tenure in office, including as chair of the House Sustainability Infrastructure Policy Committee in 2023, co-chair of the House Transportation Committee in 2025, and co-chair of the House Commerce, Finance, and Policy Committee in 2026. Representative Cagle has worked hard to improve the lives of everyday people. She has brought federal investment to Minnesota under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, passed landmark transportation legislation that invested in roads, bridges, and transit, expanded worker protections for pregnant and breastfeeding Minnesotans, and so much more. My belief in co-governance is made possible through my colleagues at the state and local level. Representative Cagle has been a great partner in this work. Her leadership will be missed, but it will leave a lasting impact on the community she served for a decade. Please join me in honoring Representative Cagle for her constituency.
Thank you. I love you. It's been an honor.
Hopefully I'm not gone forever.
All right, let's take a photo here. Thank you so much. And now we would like to welcome Spring Lake Park City Council member April Moran to give us the updates on what's happening in the city.
It's hard to follow that up. That's incredible, and congratulations. I'm going to just give a brief update of what is going on in Spring Lake Park. We will be talking in 2026 the street improvement project. This will include the Plaza Boulevard, Center Drive, Sunset Road, Theron Terrace, and a portion of County Road Highway 10. Construction is scheduled to begin July of 26. The purpose of the project is to improve road conditions, safety, drainage, and to ensure that infrastructure is good condition for the future. As we get closer to the construction, residents will get more details. We are also in the process of planning for the restoration of the city's water towers. We are very grateful to Congresswoman Omar for her support in moving forward a community project funding request to assist with funding the project. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the city's painting the water tower in the familiar stars and bars design, which has become recognizable part of our community. Restoration work is currently scheduled for 2027. And this project will help preserve an important community landmark while also maintaining critical infrastructure. The city has also been busy reinvesting in our parks. We are fortunate to receive community development block grants funding from Anoka County, which allowed us to install new playground equipment at Abel Park and Terrace Park. We also resurfaced the tennis and basketball courts and converted 2 of them into 4 pickleball courts. That is, yes, I'm glad someone's using them, yes. We are currently working on obtaining funding to rebuild the Terrace Park building, and we're excited to be partnering with the Spring Lake Park High School Trades Program, which allows students to gain hands-on experience while helping improve our community facilities. Oh, that's a good thing. I also want to mention that the city is currently looking for election judges. That's where I started and found my passion for this. So if you're interested in serving as an election judge, please contact Wanda Brown at Spring Lake Park. This is a great way to be involved and support the election process. Lastly, the city will be beginning work on our 2050 comprehensive plan update. Starting this summer, the City Council and Planning Commission will be leading this work, but there will be opportunities from the community members to provide input. This plan will help guide decisions in our community for the next 30 years, so community feedback will be very important. Please watch the city's website for more information, and thank all of you for being here and taking part in this. I wouldn't be here without all of you, so I'm just grateful for anyone taking part in community advancement. So thank you.
Thank you, City Council Member Moran. Now to the updates on what is happening in DC before we take your questions. Couple of things. First, as many of you know, in the 5th and throughout Minnesota, for months, we were struggling with the outsized presence that we saw from federal law enforcement. Many of us fought against it. I brought about 28 of my colleagues to come to the 5th to hear directly from communities that were impacted. We did a hearing at the state capitol that has helped lead to the ousting of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. It has also led to the promise of the drawback. We went from having nearly 4,000 CPP agents and ICE agents in Minnesota to now having less than 400. That is still too high when you think about what normally happens in a normal year to do law enforcement, to do federal law enforcement or immigration law enforcement. We typically would have somewhere between 150 to 200, and majority of them doing investigations on the hardened criminals that we have been hearing about. And so we are still monitoring and having those conversations with them. I think in the next week or so, we'll make another visit with them to hear the progress that they are making and what their current operation looks like. There were answers to questions that we had when Representative Angie Craig and I got the opportunity to visit Wimple that we have not still gotten answers to, and so we are going to do a follow-up visit in the next coming days or weeks. I don't have my calendar in front of me, so we'll report back once we have more clarity on where things stand at the moment. We are still tracking where the investigations are on the killing of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. We are still asking for an independent investigation. Our AG and Hennepin County District Attorney are still looking to collect any information that they can to see if there is a room for them to be able to at least instigate an investigation on their side to bring justice to our neighbors that we feel were unjustly killed. And so we'll keep you all updated once we get a little bit more clarity on that. On the war front, we are obviously opposing the unconstitutional, illegal, and unjustified war that we have waged against Iran. There is a War Powers resolution that will come to the floor once we are back from our districts and into Washington to vote in about 2 weeks. We attempted to do one a couple of weeks ago and we came short. We were trying to do it right before we came back to our districts. There were a couple of members that would have voted in the affirmative that were out on family and health issues. And so we decided to delay that vote so that it didn't fail and that we could bring that vote when we had assurance that that bill was going to be successful. We are floating a War Powers resolution as well to stop the president from attacking Cuba, as he's warned that he might do. We're also pushing to make sure that the oil blockade that is currently devastating the island and causing multiple deaths on the daily as ICUs are running out of energy supply and the generators take 10 to 15 minutes to kick in. And if you've ever been with somebody on life support, that is an automatic death. That is not enough of a time for them to survive, to wait for that generator to kick in. A couple of days ago, there were 97 people that died in one of the hospitals because of a short blockade that took place. The other thing that we are monitoring is the cost of the war in Iran. We know that upwards to $44 billion have already been spent. We have over a dozen American soldiers that have lost their lives, including a Minnesotan. We know that over 300 service members are in critical condition and awaiting to be airlifted to get the necessary medical attention that they need. We know that our service members in the Middle East that are currently facing imminent threat are having a hard time working in the bases. We know many of our bases are already also damaged. We also know that the devastation on the Iranian people. We've all seen the images of the 168 school children that were bombed in the first few minutes as the bombing started. And there are currently thousands of people that are killed and millions that are displaced in Iran. We know that there was also a bombing that happened in Ecuador. We were told that it was a place where they were making cocaine. It ended up turning out to be just a dairy farm. And we weren't able to find any evidence that there was anything happening there that could remotely come close to justifying our bombing of it. The other thing that we are working on and continuing to monitor is the partial shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. As many of you know, Democrats said we are not going to pass the appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security unless they agreed to 10 reforms, simple things like unmasking ICE agents when they were patrolling our communities. So far, the Republicans and the president have refused to say yes to any of those reforms, which means the department doesn't have the resources to be able to pay for not just ICE and CPP, but they don't have the resources to pay for TSA agents. They don't have the resources to fund the Coast Guard, to fund our cybersecurity employees in a time when we our terror alarm is higher than usual. Our Senate partners on the Democratic side at least 9 times have attempted to pass a DHS bill that would fund everyone else, but ICE and CPP and our Republican counterparts have voted against that. Finally, they agreed to on Thursday night, and it passed a DHS funding bill that did not have ICE or Border Patrol, and we were all getting ready Friday to vote on that. The Republicans in the House said that they wanted to go back to the drawing board and do the same bill that they have been doing. So that part of the department still goes unfunded and is still shut down. And our the federal employees that would be funded by the rest of the DHS still continue to work without pay. The last thing that we are looking at in Washington, D.C. is the SAFE Act, which is a piece of legislation that is in regards to, they say, creating a safe election, and we say it is a bill that disenfranchises half of the population in the United States. It's a bill that requires for people to show a proof of citizenship. We know that majority of married women who have changed their names, who might not have access to their original birth certificates and all the documents that they need in time to be able to vote on any of the primaries that are happening in the next few weeks, few months, or the November election, will be disenfranchised. So Democrats are voting no, and when it passed out of the House, I did vote no in that bill, on that bill as well. Two quick last funding things. As many of you know, the last Pentagon bill that we passed was over $800 billion. And in the big ugly bill that we passed, there was another $150 billion in supplemental to the Pentagon, and now they are asking for another $200 billion. And so, of course, I'm opposed to it, and we'll be voting no when that bill comes. We are also watching the fact that there is further conversation. We had, what was it called? A sensible ways of addressing the deficit hearing on the Budget Committee, which I'm a member of. And one of the things that they are looking at is to have further cuts to healthcare and SNAP after they've already cut $1 trillion in funding for both of those programs in the big ugly bill. And so when that comes to the floor, I'll also be voting no as well. City Council woman April Moran alluded to this. We do something called community funding project. These are forms of grants where members of Congress can request federal funding for a limited number of projects in their districts, allowing them to directly support in a financial way to these communities that need the resources. Over the last 5 years, we brought over $65 million for projects all over the district, investing in housing, in food access, in environmental quality, in job training, partially funding the storm shelter in Hilltop. Hopefully we'll be able to get the rest of the funding to complete that project. We love Hilltop too. It might be small, but it is mighty. So, and this year we have submitted, just a couple of weeks ago, we submitted 20 projects, and 2 of those projects are for the city of Spring Lake Park. The first request is for $1.5 million to rehabilitate the Apple Street Water Tower and the Arthur Street Water Tower. This project will ensure the reliable distribution of safe drinking water to residents of Spring Lake Park. We also submitted a request for $1.2 million for Terrence Park Community Recreation Building Reconstruction. We believe that safe, accessible public facilities improve the quality of life, and these projects prioritize that. Lastly, before I take your questions, I want to remind you all that our office is your liaison to the federal government, and our staff at every town hall fully attend. So I just want to give them a chance to get up and raise their hand. Stay standing so I can introduce you all. That's Connor over there, who's our chief of staff. He's Minnesotan, but he was generous enough to go to DC with me. We have Jean Heyer, who is the director of the district office. Ali, who's the deputy district director. Nikki, who is the manager of our constituent services. Fran, Ladan, and Adrian, who help do constituent work as well in their respected portfolios. Oh, and yes, Marius and Adriana also, who are in the district office. Thank you all. You can now sit down. We are often a crucial line of advocacy for our constituents who are experiencing issues with the federal government, like irregularities, delays, and emergencies. Although this might be a difficult time, our duty still remains the same. If you are unsure that whether we are able to help you with a specific situation, please contact us at 612-333-1272. That is 612-333-1272, or find one of them. They all have their cards with them. Last year, my staff was able to help over 1,000 constituents with issues like Social Security, immigration, taxes, healthcare, and more. Our team has been able to return $4.5 million to constituents, businesses, and organizations in the district. And with that, we will take questions. Ali will come around. And as a reminder, please do not touch the mic. All right, we'll start here.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman and Senator and Representative and City Council member. You talked about the SAVE Act. I have a wife and 4 daughters, none of whom's names match their original birth certificates. Mm-hmm. Is there any proactive thing that people should be doing now, or just in general, anything that we can do to, help with the integrity of our elections?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that question, and as I said earlier, there are a lot of people who have those kind of discrepancies, where it's challenging for them to get all the information that they need in order to re-register. And secondly, it's costly for people to be able to undertake it in such a short period of time before before the November elections. It's just right around the corner. I will say the chances seem to dwindle of it passing in the Senate in its current form. We are seeing Republicans that oppose it in its current form because they understand that not only are there constituents who have those kind of discrepancies and need to collect a lot of information in order for them to re-register or are going to be in trouble, but they also understand that there are, rural communities, people who just have access issues as well to be able to get it done on time. And we already have so many Americans who do not participate in our elections. It just does not make any sense why we would make it harder when we already have one of the least engaged electorate in the Western Hemisphere.
I could spend hours just thanking you for all the things you do. I'm not going to do that. But I want to quickly mention 2 things. One is the Whipple building and the visit there. I want to really thank you for the incredible importance of going there, of highlighting the plight of the people that are there. And I want to also thank you for bringing along Angie Craig, who I was not completely convinced was going to be there at that point. But she was, and I thank you for that. The deeper thing that I want to thank you for is what you just mentioned. You are the best advocate for the values that I have ever had in my now 80 years, okay? And I know that that makes you enemies sometimes to say things very bluntly that we mostly know are true, but I really appreciate it. It takes tremendous courage, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. That means a great deal. Okay, we'll go next to Terry.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm bringing a question in from someone else. We noticed that ICE was at our local church by Hy-Vee, taking pictures of the building and spending the day there. Our concern is, due to fraud all over the state and anywhere else, are we going to be cut off on our food supply because everyone else is causing an issue? So they're extremely worried about their food distribution. And so are we as a community. Right now, we are feeding about 60 families in our community alone and going as far as Bloomington, Brooklyn Center, and anywhere else anyone asks us to bring them food. So the question was, what's next? And is there a concern for big food distributions such as theirs?
I don't think there is a concern for food distribution. We haven't really heard anything in that regard. We know that the administration says they are targeting us for fraud, even though there are a lot of states that have higher numbers of fraud than us. We also know that there are states that have higher numbers of undocumented people or people who are on retainers to be deported or for removal. And so we all know why we're being targeted, and it has nothing to do with any of the reasons that the president and this administration has given. It's because we didn't vote for him 3 times. But in all jokes aside, I would say every time they have tried to go after us in holding government funds, we have successfully been able to have the courts release those funds for us. And so I'm confident that if any of what you're concerned with happened, that we would be able to successfully defeat it.
I also want to thank you. You've helped me in a couple of different points in my life. But the biggest thing right now is the concern for hospitals and for DHS, but not the one we all know and love, the Department of Human Services. There is a lot of issues with money not being allocated correctly for those people. My wife works for DHS, and she gets to see it every day, and it's terrible. What she asked is that we really fight to not have any more cuts, because she will see a lot of people hurting more so for that. So, but thank you again for everything you do.
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. Like I said earlier, I voted against the $1 trillion cuts in the big ugly bill. I share everywhere that I go that I know that my colleagues in the state legislature are not going to be able to fill that gap. And I hear from our healthcare facilities, like HCMC, which is Trauma One Response Center. It's where my children were born. I deeply care about it surviving because it serves so many people, not just in the Twin Cities, but across the state. Our community healthcare centers, all of them are going to be completely devastated when that bill goes into effect at the end of the year and early next year. And there is not going to be a level of property taxes that could be raised or any tax revenue that could be generated in Minnesota that is going to help offset the pain and suffering that will be inflicted when that bill goes into impact. And so, like I warned earlier, they are still hungry to punish the most vulnerable in our country, as they are proposing more cuts to healthcare, more cuts to SNAP, more cuts to WIC. And so we are going to do our best. Obviously, we're in the minority, but we're going to do our best to try to fight to make sure no further cuts happen. But we are also taking some comfort in knowing that there is the possibility that we do get to be in the majority in couple of in January. And that does give us leverage to say, you know, we need some of this money back if you want any of these things. And so my hope is that we could stop the bleeding and the suffering that is bringing the level of emotion that you and your wife are feeling to bear. Thank you. We'll go up there.
Hello, I just wanted to first thank you for your work and advocacy concerning ICE. I am a University of Minnesota student, and the first two sweeps of Operation Metro Surge not only endangered myself, but others who fell victim to Immigration and Customs Enforcement's blatant disregard for civil rights. So sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your hard work. And I'll apologize for making you reiterate a point. I did come a little late. A little over a month ago, federal government withheld the Medicaid funds in response to alleged fraud. I'm just wondering, given the impacts on care, what should we expect moving forward when it comes to Medicaid? What should we hear back? Just a general consensus of what's going on there.
Yeah. The pause of those funds, our Attorney General was able to sue them and won. One of my pet peeves is the fact that like the bad news is reported and what happens after is never reported. So I never really read the headlines of like we won, like none of this really actually happened. It's just the crazy headlines that comes out of this administration that people get to live with, and they don't really know that 99% of the things that they say or try to have be done to us, we are defeating them in court, and they're not actually they're not sustained. And so in that regard, at least from the last information that is known to me, we are good. But as the gentleman was saying earlier, we do have these cuts that are coming. And as I said, we do not, our counties are trying their best, the state legislators are trying their best. It is not a funding year. Our Minnesota Constitution is very clear. And so it is a challenging year for us to have an armor around ourselves to protect from what is coming. But you have to know that we are much more fortunate than many of the states that are going to see these cuts. And so I am worried for the whole country, right? Like we're not just worried for the pain that Minnesotans are going to feel, the pain that all of Americans who rely on these programs, who rely on these services, is going to be too much. And it is something that we're hoping that we can leverage to get back once we have the majority. We'll go all the way up there. I can't really see.
Congresswoman, my name is Jay. I live in your district, and I want to thank you on behalf of myself and my family for showing exceptional courage in addition to what you've been doing. I also represent the United Nations Association, and we are so thankful to you for always standing to vote in favor of the United Nations effort to save lives, fight disease, and bring peace to the world. You've been exceptional. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. I mean, my life was saved because of the UN. If it wasn't for UNHCR, I don't think I would have been fed as a kid and wouldn't be here in front of you as a congresswoman. So you got to give back to those who gave to you. So I appreciate you. The hat, yes. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, first of all, for even holding a town hall. I feel like it's not very often that our representatives actually show up in person. I just wanted to revisit the question from the beginning. Me and my husband are in a similar situation to his wife and his daughters, where we changed our names after we got married. So I know you're doing everything you can to prevent the bill from even passing in the first place, but if it does pass in its current form, what documentation, what things can we be doing, or what things do we need to make sure that we already have handy in order to re-register to vote?
Yeah. That's a good question. So one of the easiest, fastest way, which is why we say, 21 million Americans will be disenfranchised. That number comes from the number of Americans that don't have a passport. So if you have the means, getting a passport would be the easiest registration form of identification. If you don't, then obviously having your original birth certificate, the form in which you changed your name, and your marriage certificate, which becomes cumbersome, but that's basically what the requirements are going to be of what you would need in order to register. Okay, we'll do right there in the middle.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Can I give you a 2-minute break and ask a question to the representative from the Senate?
Oh, please, thank you.
A minute ago, you mentioned HCMC, which is a vital part of our community as a safety net hospital, and there's some conversations in the House and the Senate about funding. Can you bring us up to speed on that, please?
In the House, we're trying to push a bill called 430B, something like that. Looking to my brain over here. But it's basically a rebate program that the drug companies had set up. And so what's happening is HCMC is capturing that rebate and putting it back into hospital care. And of course, Big Pharma is fighting that right now. We had that bill come up for a vote in health, and the Republicans tanked it and then tabled it. And so we're really hoping that we can get that figured out. I know that the Senate side is going to be doing that. They're also looking at some ways to repurpose the baseball stadium tax. But as the Congresswoman said, that HCMC is a statewide asset, and so having just Hennepin County pay for it is a little bit of a kind of rub the wrong way. So we need to figure out ways that we can make sure that every county across the state pays for parts of HCMC because it is such a statewide asset. And people from all over the state are in that hospital. It's not just people from Hennepin County. I actually had a friend who works at HCMC call me. I hadn't talked to him for like 10 years, and he calls me, and he's a urologist, and I mean, he was very concerned. They've already cut their 401k program. There's no, the doctors don't get any, I mean, there's no fringe benefits or anything like that. They're really just down to bare basics. And they're very much worried about HCMC collapsing as a hospital itself. And once that goes, then the rest of the system will fall. And so, like,
Isn't there also a bill for Hennepin County?
yeah, I'm not so sure about, I don't know about the Hennepin County one. Mary, do you know anything about the Hennepin County one? I know the baseball tax, and then, okay, go ahead. Then you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I will just add, Hennepin County commissioners also have a bill in front of the legislators. I think it's 10 million or 10 billion to help keep HCMC open. No.
Peace and love to all of you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
All of you. My name is Scott Ebert, and I have a proposal that I'd like to talk to one of your people about. I'm a little bit nervous, so just give me a moment. I also would like to make a statement of my position, if you allow me. I don't intend it to be offensive, and I don't want to.
I'll let you know if it was offensive.
Okay, okay. So
It's okay.
I have to read it because. So I've already given you my name. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, crucified, dead and buried, rose again from the dead, is seated at the right hand of the Father, will come again to judge in glory, to judge the living and the dead. This is my foundation. This is my stand. This is my rock. So it's the perspective of where I'm coming from. So, to be clear, my question to you, Ilhan, and I think I forgot to tell you that, I'm honored and privileged to meet you and see you in person. I have seen your picture a million times. I've heard stories. I've seen jokes. I've seen on and on and on. But it's an honor to meet you and a privilege, as with the rest of you. And so here's my question. Can I count on you as my representative?
Of course.
Nice answer. So then the proposal that I have is about signage outside of houses of worship.
Okay.
And I'd like them to state their foundations, their core principles, so that you don't have to go in. You can be on the outside of the building and see what they're about. Because people get caught in traps, people get caught in snares and in entanglements and misled. And we have taken things out of the government. I believe in the 10 Commandments that used to be posted, that it's no longer posted. So we're losing an issue, a problem. So that's what the purpose of that signage is. I was caught in a cult at one time.
Because they didn't put their purpose on the door?
Well, kind of, except that I answered an ad in the paper. I was in a desperate situation. I answered an ad in the paper that said, money, money, money. If all you want is money in life, you need not apply. But if you want to do something to benefit mankind, and I'm going to... Huh? Yeah, just a second. But I already asked the question. She already gave me the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want me to sit down?
Thank you so much. I do, even though I am a woman of faith, I do believe in the separation of church and state. I do think that it is important for people to have an idea of what they are walking into and what they are believing and following. And so thank you for putting that out into the space. We'll do here, Paige Brown. Glasses.
Thank you. I'm Amber. Hi.
Because both of you have, I'm like,
That's okay. We both have a hand.
both of you raised your hand and
that's
you
okay.
have the exact same. I'm like, I don't.
No worries. So hi, I'm Amber. I live in Minneapolis, and I'll try not to go crazy on my story and everything, but I just wanted to introduce myself. This is my first town hall. So hi, everyone. And I have lived in Minneapolis for about a little over 10 years now, and I'm from St. Cloud. And I was born with a congenital heart defect called dextrotransposition of the great arteries. So I have had 18 heart surgeries, and I have had 5 open heart surgeries, the last of which was about 2 years ago. So I'm doing good. I'm here. I'm alive. Yes.
Amazing.
So I'm here because I wanted to, I've always been involved in politics. I have a poli-sci degree, and I currently work in Medicaid enrollment for Medica. I'm in charge of the IT department, so I'm just trying to give my backstory, but I am in particular very invested in the ACA and the Affordable Care Act because it gave me the ability to get insurance, to get life insurance in particular, and for me to be able to just be protected. And so I have this very large concern about, the cuts to the ACA and making sure that people with pre-existing conditions like me, I've worked all my life. I've worked since I was basically 14 years old. My parents own a business. I worked for them, and then I went to college and I got a job right out of college. I've always had a job. I've always worked really hard. And I've had great insurance, but I have a very large concern because the only cure for my condition is a heart transplant, which will probably happen when I'm in my 50s, hopefully. Maybe later, we'll find out. But essentially, I just want to know, what's going on with the ACA? What's kind of, are we hearing in Washington about making sure that the credits are not going to be, affecting Americans? I know it's going to affect Americans, but what are we doing to protect particularly those with pre-existing conditions?
We worked to pass legislation to protect people who have pre-existing conditions. We worked very hard to not have the subsidies go away. They are currently in the Big Ugly Bill. And fortunately, unless we pass legislation that stops that, those are going to go into effect. And as I've answered the questions relating to healthcare throughout the night, our only path to addressing it is to have at least, if not both the House and the Senate, at least one of the chambers be one that will hold the administration accountable and use its leverage to legislate on behalf of Americans who are going to be made vulnerable. But as Aaron Cagle said earlier, there's pushes here in Minnesota to create a single-payer system. I serve as one of the vice chairs for Medicare for All caucus in Congress. So we'll continue to push that. When I got to Congress, I think we had like 90 members that were signers. And I think we're at 160 or more now. We had 4 hearings my first year there. And so we continue to grow and have the American people understand that this is a popular issue. It's actually kind of funny because the SAFE Act or voter ID, one of the reasons they're saying they're pushing for it is Americans support it, but they don't support the actual bill once they understand what the bill does. But Medicare for All, even when we explain what it does, we have over 75% of Americans that support the bill. And so if we are going by what is popular with the American people, I tell the majority to pass the Medicare for All Act and to get it done for the American people. So we'll take maybe 2 more. Next, yes, sir.
Okay, first off, thank you for being so thick-skinned against this administration. Second of all, my boy is serving Air Force active duty right now. My wife is an immigrant. She's from Bulgaria. Extremely worried, only child. I mean, just doesn't want him to die, of course. Nobody wants to die. Also, I want to take my wife back home to see her family. It's been 9 years. I'm scared to death. They're not going to let her back in. She's naturalized. She's got a passport, but these people are nuts. I'm sorry.
No, I mean that I share that concern with you, and with your wife. There are American-born citizens to immigrant parents who also have that fear. I also get from Caucasian Americans who are, 10 15 generation who, are hearing some stories that are not true, but the stories are out there, right? Like somebody's passport was teared up, and, they got stranded, or somebody wouldn't renew, or the embassy wouldn't let them in. These stories are there, and they're just creating a lot of fear. So I hear you. My daughter, who was born here, and she is not an anchor baby. She was born to both of her parents after we were citizens. She was coming back into the country, and was texting me every 5 seconds. I'm gonna get stopped. They're not gonna let me back in. I'm gonna get stopped. They're not gonna let me back in. They're gonna find out I'm your daughter. They're not gonna let me back in. And myself, I'm like, okay, give my information to whoever's traveling with, so I'm trying to at least take note of her concern. I know it's not going anywhere. But, her stepdad is just like, tell her she doesn't have any other country. Like, they're not gonna not let her come into her own country. And so I say to you that although the fears exist, we have not seen anything to substantiate that. We have not seen any naturalized American or any person born in the United States, regardless of their background. They might have gotten detained for hours, harassed for the content that's on their phone. I've seen people whose phones have been taken because they have memes about the president. Just tells you how thin-skinned this administration is. But I've seen those kind of things. There were the young people, the activists who were just with that envoy doing humanitarian aid in Cuba. One of them was Minnesotan. He was held for 8 hours. They still have his cell phone, or not just Minnesotan, but a constituent of mine. And so those stories, those ones are valid, but I've not seen anyone not be allowed to enter. And so yes, take your wife back, go see the family, and enjoy your time, and give us a call if anything happens, because I will meet you all at the airport. Thank you. Okay, we'll take the sweater.
Hi, thank you. The people looking at me does not make me speak very well. But
Sorry.
I'll do my best. So I'm a family of 8, wife, 4 kids, and my parents live with me. I'm taking care of them. Felt like I need to add more to it, so I opened my own private school this year.
Wow.
And so far I have 20 students. 75 of my 20 students are girls, middle and high school.
Wow.
So I do not have a question. I actually have a request. If we can arrange something, if you can give us the honor and visit us, or if we can visit you, I believe it's very important for my students to understand when to speak and when to keep it to yourself for now. Because not everyone is an Ilhan Omar sitting around. Security can say, you're a murderer, right? That's very important to know when to speak and when not.
Oftentimes when I say that, I don't have security, so just say. Where is the school?
The school is in the Brooklyn Park Islamic Center in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota here.
All right. I try not to visit schools out of my district, but we'll see what we can do.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, all right, time, okay. We'll do 2 more, unless there's a nagging question here that I feel like I haven't called on. Very shy crowd on this side. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out to Spring Lake Park. My name is Halen Roth. I have a question about education. You've mentioned a couple of times the big ugly bill, and specifically Medicaid that was cut in the big ugly bill. Some people might not be aware, but schools get a lot of their funding from Medicaid, specifically special education. My son is 10 years old. He's on the autism spectrum. He's in a special education classroom. My husband's a special education teacher as well. Can you speak to any specifics about how that affects special education funding?
Yeah. Mary, do you want to? Our resident specialist here.
So when it comes to the federal government and funding education, Minnesota sends more to the federal government than we get back. And the federal government has not kept pace or kept their side of the agreement as far as funding education. We subsidize about 60% of what the federal government should be sending to us. Now, right now, the governor has tasked us. Can you hear a bird?
I hear a bird. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's right there.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if it was just me or Aaron. We're both like, what are we hearing here? Yeah. Right now in Minnesota, we have, so I am not confident that we will see any kind of increase coming from the federal government when it comes to education and upholding their responsibility. They have very systematically disseminated the Department of Education and sending bits and pieces out here and there, and we don't even know who to go to when there is a problem or an issue. And so I have no confidence that we are going to get any support from our federal government when it comes to education, which means here in our state, we're going to have to do our best to fund that special education as much as possible. Last year, the governor created the Blue Ribbon Committee, and he tasked them with, and this is really heartbreaking, with finding $250 million in savings in special education, because the cost of special education has just ramped up in a way that we can't continue. I mean, it's just unaffordable 100% in the way that it is. And so here in the state, we are looking for the best ways to address that issue and to not have to cut $250 million. And remember, those are all your taxpayer dollars. And the only way that I can think of to get out of that is to find ways within state government, like the constitutional amendment that I suggested, or other ways where we are not taxing the wealthy. And one example is there are these really fancy athletic sports boxes when you go to the stadiums, and you see up there, you see those suites up there. Those are not taxed at all. Not at all. No sales tax on those. And so Senator Mayquay did the numbers, and she said we could pay for the READ Act, which is the new literacy program that we could pay for that with just that sales tax. And so we are looking under every rock, behind every door, under every cushion to find additional ways to fund education, and especially those most vulnerable, like our special ed and our EL students.
Like I said earlier, in the Big Ugly Bill, we have over $800 billion cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and there are about $130 billion cuts to the Department of Education. We also know that discrimination is going to be a problem, especially for special ed students, because the department's civil rights department is basically dismantled. So folks that are making claims also are not getting it addressed in school districts. And when we think about the Blue Ribbon program and trying to find ways to save money, a lot of the waste and the fraud that we see is because those wraparound services are not within the institutions that the kids rely on for their education. So if we could bring a lot of that in-house within the schools and provide have the Department of Education provide the direct support that the parents need who have kids with disability, and cut the middleman who are scamming our taxpayers, then we would have more resources than what we have right now, and we would have less conversation about finding $200 billion to cut from a program that already doesn't have enough money. We'll take right there in the white jacket, and then at the end over there.
Going back to the SAVE Act, have never been married, but I'm thinking as a woman, I need to prove that I still have my own last name. And then the other thing I've been worrying about is that the SAVE Act is basically going to prohibit, unless women have the documentation, to 86 our vote.
Okay, and then the hat here, Ali. Yes.
I have some information that may help down the road.
Okay.
The Supreme Court said back in the 60s that you cannot have a poll tax. If you are forcing these people to spend money on IDs that they don't actually need.
It's a form of poll tax.
It's a poll tax.
Yeah.
So can you remind these idiot Republicans that that's the problem?
We do. Yeah, it's literally been part of every floor debate that we had. And then we'll end with the young man all the way up there. He's been jumping up and down. Okay, while you walk up there, I'll just answer your question. That is, it's one of the reasons, right? It's just how do we find, you'll hear these people, you know, when they're on the podcasts, they don't believe women are smart enough to vote. You know, they're like, what does the world look like when women don't have agency? So it is an open discussion on the right on what it looks like if women didn't vote. And then it's an open discussion what it looks like if non-cis white male were the only ones voting. Like what kind of leaders we would have, what kind of policies we would have, what would it look like? And so the SAFE Act in itself is coded in this idea of election integrity, but it is a Jim Crow styled disenfranchisement bill that is designed to make it hard for every single demographic that they find undesirable and that they blame in making decisions in electing people like me, who they do not think should have the opportunity to represent her neighbors in Congress. All right, we'll end with the young man up there.
Thank you. My question is, do you support lowering taxes for the middle income earners or singles, and how will you offset the lost revenue? And what changes do the tax system do you believe will be most fair for working American? So last year I made like 70K, but I only got 500 tax return. So I'm like, what's going on? Is this fair to me?
Depends on what box you checked. Yeah, because sometimes if you do exam, you end up not getting a lot of money back. But no, I support a progressive taxation. I support making sure that folks who are considered well-to-do in this country to pay their fair share. Right now, we have a regressive taxation where those that are struggling in this country are required to pay multiple taxes, where those who are rich get to get away and not pay. No, not you. No. I mean, like the sweets you were talking about, or like tax cuts for yachts and estate or those kind of things, where, if you are low income or working class, you don't get those kind of tax breaks. And so there are many proposals in Congress. And, we are a majority in waiting. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those policies done. All right, I apologize to my staff. I think I'm 30 minutes over time. Thank you all so much for joining us for this month's town hall. It's been a delight. Again, give it up for Representative Erin Cagle. When I said I'll miss you, she was like, I'm not going away, I'll see you. And so she is not going away, and we'll find other ways to serve all of our communities. But again, thank you all very much. Huh? Oh, and thank you to, yes, thank you to the school for allowing us to have, to the staff and the administration for allowing us to have this month's town hall. See you at next month's town hall. Thank you all.